If you're a high-achieving woman who's exhausted by stress, stuck in constant conflict, and tired of being overlooked in the exact rooms where you know you were born to lead, then this podcast is for you. So here's your host, Pallavi Jain.
Welcome back to Her Boss Brain, the space for high-achieving women who are ready to move from stress to success by leading from within. I'm your host, Pallavi, and on this podcast, we talk about how to activate your boss brain, be on self-start, by making conscious withdrawals from your inner ATM. Because leadership doesn't begin with doing more. It begins from within. When you arrive, take responsibility and make a conscious choice. For most of my life, I've moved through very different seasons of myself. There were years when I was deeply passionate about work, almost consumed by it. Then seasons when all I wanted was to be with my family. Then came my health and fitness phase, discipline, clean eating, structure. And then a few years ago, something very different entered my life. Sitting alone in silence, eyes closed, doing absolutely nothing. For a long time, I thought something was wrong with me. Like, why couldn't I just pick one version of myself and stay there? And why did my priorities keep shifting? Until one quiet moment, I really realized that all of these longings, ambition, connection, health, stillness, were not competing versions of me. They were parts of me. And balance wasn't about choosing one and abandoning the others. Balance was about learning how to hold all of them without losing myself. Right? Balance isn't something you manage on your calendar. It's something you feel in your nervous system. We talk about balance as if it's a time problem or a scheduling problem or a productivity problem. But balance isn't about time. Balance is about inner alignment. And this matters now more than ever. We're living in the workforce moment where burnout is no longer hidden. Across industries, right? We're seeing that leaders quietly stepping down from high-profile roles. CEOs are actually openly talking about exhaustion and mental health. Employees disengaging, not because they don't care, but because they care too much for way too long. This isn't a motivation crisis. It's a nervous system crisis. Most of us don't actually have a time problem. We have an attention problem because we're living in an overstimulated, always on world with nervous system that really gets to power down. Now, when you're not internally aligned, your attention gets hijacked by urgency, guilt, and noise. So balance doesn't start in your calendar. It starts inside. When you're aligned, life doesn't suddenly become calm, by the way. The waves still come. Deadlines still rise. Kids still need you. Business still demands focus. But alignment turns you into a surfer. A surfer doesn't fight the ocean or demand smaller waves. They read the wave. They adjust their stance. They trust their balance. And here's the part we often miss. Once a surfer finds their balance, the ocean isn't something to survive. It's something to engage with, even enjoy. From a nervous system perspective, this matters deeply. Stress isn't what throws us off. It's when we don't know how to move through it. A regulated nervous system lets you move through activation and then return to center. So balance is also not just staying calm all the time. Balance is how quickly you come back to yourself. And here's where most people lose their balance. When the waves keep coming and no one teaches you how to reset between them, you don't stay in alignment and you go into overdrive. Not because you're weak, but because your nervous system is actually trying to protect you. And hence overdrive many times feels like progress until you realize you're moving fast, but in the wrong direction. Let's talk about overdrive because sometimes overdrive is necessary, right? When you're starting a business, you're launching something new, you're managing a real crisis, overdrive can be useful temporarily. But when overdrive becomes a lifestyle, something quietly disappears. Choice. Here's the science in simple terms. Chronic stress keeps your nervous system in a constant state of mobilization. And over time, this reduces clarity, creativity, and emotional regulation, even though you might be doing more. I see this all the time. Leaders who are busy but not effective, moving fast but drifting away from what actually matters, accomplishing tasks while slowly losing themselves. Overdrive does feel like progress until you realize you're moving without direction. And this is usually the moment when people say, I just need to focus better. So we download another productivity app. We try to discipline our attention. We blame ourselves for being distracted. But here's the myth I want to break. Overdrive doesn't create an attention problem. It creates an alignment problem. We hear a lot about attention management. Focus more, eliminate distractions, be disciplined. But here's the deeper truth. Attention follows alignment. When you are internally misaligned, your mind actually constantly jumps. You multitask without meaning to. You feel busy but not fulfilled. That's not a discipline problem. That's a nervous system scanning for safety. I often say this to leaders that I work with, that you don't need more focus. You need less internal conflict. And when alignment returns, attention settles naturally. And this is where this stops being a personal productivity issue and becomes a leadership issue. Because the state of your nervous system doesn't stay inside you. It walks into the meetings with you. It shapes how you respond. It sets the emotional tone for everyone around you. This is why in my Lead from Within work, we don't start with communication scripts or leadership behaviors. We start with what I call your inner technology. The nervous system that's running the show beneath every decision, reaction, and interaction. Because no skill works consistently when the system using it is dysregulated. A dysregulated leader can be brilliant and still can create chaos. We talk a lot about leadership skills, communication, strategy, vision, but one of the most overlooked leadership responsibilities is nervous system safety. When a leader's nervous system is constantly activated, everything feels urgent. Feedback sounds personal. Small issues feel big. And teams feel this before a word is spoken. I once worked with a highly capable leader, smart, driven, well-intentioned, by the way. But their nervous system was always bracing. Meetings felt tense, ideas stopped flowing, people hesitated to speak up. Now, when that leader learned to regulate, pausing before responding, grounding before meetings, their role didn't change, but the room did. A regulated leader doesn't just manage people, they set the emotional climate. This isn't a nice to have, this is leadership. This is why moments like, Jacinda Ardern's resignation landed so deeply across the world. When she stepped down as the Prime Minister of New Zealand, her words were simple and disarming. She no longer felt she had enough in the tank to continue. That wasn't weakness, that was alignment. In a global culture that glorifies endurance at all costs, her decision quietly modeled a different kind of leadership, one rooted in self-awareness, limits, and responsibility. Inner alignment begins with one question. Does my nervous system feel safe enough to choose? Your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and restore system, is what allows you clear thinking, presence, perspective, conscious choice. You cannot align your life from a nervous system that feels under threat. And that's why telling yourself to focus, prioritize better, doesn't work when you're dysregulated, because the body always speaks first. Here's a simple science-backed tool you can use in real time before a meeting, a decision, or a difficult conversation. Neuroscience tells us this. When an emotional or stress response is triggered, the surge of stress hormones in the body lasts about 60 to 90 seconds if it's not continuously refueled by mental storytelling. So the goal is not to calm down. The goal is to let the wave pass without adding fuel. Let me tell you how. Step 1, name the sensation, not the story. Silently name what you feel in the body. Tight chest, heat, shallow breath, clenched jaw. What is it? This engages the prefrontal cortex and reduces limbic reactivity, your emotional center. Step 2, lengthen the exhale for 90 seconds. Inhale naturally. Exhale slowly, slightly longer than your inhale. This signals safety through the vagus nerve and activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Step 3, stay with that sensation, not meaning. Resist analyzing, fixing, or justifying. Let the sensation move on its own. Most people are shocked by this. When you don't add narrative, the body self-regulates. This is not avoidance. This is emotional intelligence at the nervous system level. Alignment often begins after the stress wave passes, not while you're inside it. Last year was a mixed bag for me. There were periods when I wasn't actively working on my business, work I deeply care about. And instead of honoring that space, I labeled it as wasting time. I felt guilty, unproductive, behind, and that guilt did something painful. Even when I was with my family, part of me wasn't really there. When we judge where we are, we lose the ability to be where we are. That realization brought me back to my own framework, not as a concept, but as a lifeline. The ATM reset. I arrived. I noticed that what was actually happening in my body, tightness, restlessness, fatigue. Take responsibility. I stopped blaming circumstances and took responsibility for my inner state, not to fix it, but to honor it and make a conscious choice. I asked one simple question. What truly matters right now? That question changed everything. Alignment doesn't ask you to solve your whole life. It asks a gentler question. What matters right now in this season, in this body, in this moment? Your nervous system gives you clues. And by the way, what matters rarely shouts. It steadies you. Fear is noisy, urgent, tight. So alignment isn't convenient. It's relieving. It's actually like, balance isn't an on and off switch. It's a dimmer. Some seasons require brighter focus on work. Some require softer light, rest, family, reflection. Alignment is knowing which setting you're in and why. That's not imbalance. That's wisdom. Let's make this practical. Imagine this scenario, okay? You're leading a team. A project is behind. A senior stakeholder sends a tense email late at night. Your name is copied, so is your boss's. What happens? Your nervous system reads threat. Before you're even aware of it, your chest tightens, your thoughts speed up, your attention narrows, and you react. You fire off a quick response. Your tone is sharper than you intended. You call an urgent meeting. You push harder. What happens next? The team goes into defense mode. Creativity drops. Accountability turns into compliance. You look decisive, but underneath, you're leading from pressure. Now, when you work with this inner alignment, same email, same delay, same external pressure, but internally something is different. You pause. You take one longer exhale. You let the initial stress wave pass. Now your nervous system feels safe enough to choose. You respond with clarity instead of urgency. You ask better questions. You separate facts from assumptions. You address the issue without activating fear. And what happens next? The team stays engaged. Their responsibility actually increases, and solutions emerge faster, which was the end goal anyways. So you didn't lower the bar. You changed the state from which you led. That's inner alignment in action. So when the nervous system is aligned, attention stabilizes, guilt softens, priorities clarify, and leadership becomes grounded. So balance isn't something you force. It's something that emerges from this inner alignment. So I want to say this one more time. Balance isn't about doing less or achieving more. It's about being internally aligned enough to choose on purpose. Before your next decision, meeting, or commitment, pause and ask yourself, what truly matters right now? Balance begins there. This is exactly what I teach in my Lead from Within workshops. I often say this to leaders. You can't use a technology well if you don't understand how it works. And your nervous system is the most powerful technology you will use every day, whether you're aware of it or not. So before you move on with your day, here's one simple practice you can start immediately. For the next 7 days, when something triggers you, a tense email, a difficult conversation, a decision that feels charged, pause for 90 seconds before responding. And during those 90 seconds, don't solve, don't justify, don't explain. Just lengthen your exhale and let the first stress wave pass. Then respond. Those 90 seconds give your nervous system enough safety to bring your boss brain back online. This is the kind of inner work we practice, again, inside my Lead from Within workshops. Not theory, not motivation, but practical tools leaders can use in real time to move from reactivity into clarity, alignment, harmony, and sustainable performance. If this episode resonated with you, you'll find more information about those workshops in the show notes. And if this conversation supported you, share it with someone who might need a reminder that balance doesn't come from doing more. It comes from leading from within. Take care, everyone. I'll see you next time.
So that's it for today's episode of Her Boss Brain podcast. Head on over to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will win a chance in a grand prize drawing to win a $25,000 private VIP day with Pallavi herself. Be sure to head on over to herbossbrainpodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Pallavi's gift and join us next time.